very much. It's a great honor to be here and to be asked by Karen to participate and to join such an illustrious panel to look at the China threat, the threat from the People's Republic of China through many different avenues, and to look at the consequences about how their tentacles have reached into international organizations, as Frank has mentioned, and Reggie as well. And so we need to understand this threat in order to defeat it and to kill it, which is what we want to do. We want victory over the People's Republic of China. We want to kill the Chinese Communist Party. And that's what we are essentially tasked to do at this time. Every generation of Americans, of course, have faced different threats, and this is the threat that falls to us at this period of time. Why is the People's Republic of China an existential threat to the United States? Two reasons. First, their capabilities. As Jim Fennell mentioned, and others as well on the panel, their capabilities have grown immeasurably. John Mills told you about how they now have the ability to move against Taiwan in short order. So if we look at their nuclear capabilities, they went from a very modest nuclear arsenal to one, as Jim mentioned, which is formidable. They have new technologies to deliver nuclear weapons, which we actually lack, which is telling. Their chemical weapons capabilities are robust. That is something that the United States does not have, but China does. Their biological weapons capabilities also are significant. Not COVID, obviously that was powerful, but they continue to conduct research in biological weapons. So the threat is quite considerable in each of those areas. In the conventional realm, Jim mentioned the Navy, of course, how the Navy has grown. Their Air Force likewise. Their Army, a bit smaller but more professional as China goes through professionalization to learn from the United States about professionalization. And we mentioned some incidents in the book where sadly some naval officers, US naval officers, assisted the Chinese Navy with by answering their questions and assisting them, for example, with facilitating carrier operations, which is not what you want to do if you want to secure the United States, is to help your greatest adversary. Cyber capabilities equally. Director Wray, FBI Director Wray mentioned, of course, and we've seen whether it's a crane or whether it's the fact that they've been embedded on an infrastructure for a considerable amount of time, wedded to the individuals coming across the border that Frank Gaffney mentioned, right? Again, this is a very dangerous situation. Their capabilities to conduct covert action in the United States, again, because of these individuals coming across the border, has greatly been facilitated. So their capabilities have grown exponentially. So they're a threat for those reasons. Secondly, they're a threat because they're communists. Okay, that's the fundamental point. It's the ideology of communism. You can't be a married bachelor. It's a logical impossibility. Equally, you can't be a peaceful Leninist. If you are a Leninist, you're aggressive and hyper-aggressive. So the problem that we face was born in November 1917 with the Bolshevik Revolution. And the success of that revolution, the creation of the Communist International or Third Communist International, and its ability to export the revolution worldwide, that was the intent. After a bit of mixed signals, the Soviets got it right by backing the Chinese Communist Party, and they facilitated it through Stalin's imprint on the Chinese Communist Party. A lot of folks talk about Mao, and he certainly is a very significant leader, but it was Stalin who made the Chinese Communist Party an effective force. It was Stalin who gave them a refuge. It was Stalin who gave them the capabilities to survive in dangerous times against the Chinese Nationalist Party or against the US-backed later after World War II Chinese Nationalist Party. So when we recognize that, it was Joseph Stalin whose imprint we still feel today with this aggressive ideology, evinced by Xi Jinping, of course, as my colleagues have mentioned. So it's a very significant recognition that what we're dealing with, we've been wrestling with since 1917. And so we need to start thinking like communists. If we think like communists, we can understand their motivation, their intent, their determination why they're not going to waver. You're not going to compromise with them, right? Because as Lenin said, treaties or agreements are pie crust, they're made to be broken. So they're willing to make an agreement tactically, but their direction nonetheless changes. We have a different face of communism in the United States. The communists recognized the revolution was not going to come to the US based on the factory floor, a revolution in the factory floor. It was going to come through, as the Frankfurt School and Antonio Gramsci recognized, through ideas. It was going to capture the ideas industry. If you capture Hollywood and you capture universities, educational systems, you can eject communist ideas over time, and it actually took short order. You can bring about a very dramatic change in a society. So the threat faces itself, of course, in a domestic context in the US, but also in that international context with the Chinese Communist Party. The CCP is determined to kill Americans. It's determined to force its will on the rest of the world. And many of the mentions that Reggie has discussed, or that Frank did as well, changing international institutions, changing conceptions of what international order is, or freedom, human opportunities, liberties, they're doing their utmost to bring about that change, and to do so rapidly. There was a time where we thought the WHO was here to help us. Now we recognize the WHO is here to kill us, right, in some way, and to enslave us. And so that change is something that the CCP is driving, and it allows us to see the nature of the threat is fundamentally an ideological one, despite their prodigious capabilities. And Xi Jinping could die tomorrow, but it wouldn't change anything, right? A new leader would still have, in essence, with some modest changes, the same policy direction. So what do we need to do is Karen's group, of course, and her energy is considerable, Herculean, and groups obviously like CPAC and you as the individuals who are aware of this problem and working to combat it, right, need to see what has to be accomplished, right? We need to recapture the spirit of 1776, right? We need to recognize that what the United States is a unique political entity in international politics. The United States was created for Americans, and Americans have rights that have to be respected, no matter what lawyers or tricks are going to be played, and they're innumerable, right? Endless. The bag of tricks is very large to combat them. It is our freedom, it is our liberties which were given to us and that we have to sustain, and sustaining those freedoms and liberties begins with the recognition of what's happening to us. And if you begin to recognize, yes, we're trained as Americans to think in a certain way, but we also need to view the world as communists do, and what their motivations are, and to begin to think like communists so that we're able to understand what their intent is, and their tactics, and why they're relentless. And so that's never going to end. The solution to this problem is to evict the Communist Party of China from power and to bring China back to its greatness as a Han civilization in accord with the Chinese polity, which is basically peaceful, as China has been for a lot of its history. It is the fact that you have an illegitimate government, the Chinese Communist Party, imposed by Stalin, on the rest of the world, right? It's a Western force. It's a Western ideology essentially grafted onto China, again, because it was the Soviets who did it. And when we recognize that, they're completely illegitimate. There's no reason why they should be part of international society, and they should be ejected from it immediately. And we can send them the bill for COVID, right? That's a good place to start to begin to take these measures. But fundamentally, Americans will be as victorious as they were in the past against previous forms of tyranny. And so when we consider the dispositive question of this century, it's the same as the 20th century. The 20th century, there was the tension, obviously, between tyranny and freedom won, right? It was a difficult fight, and a lot of blood was spilled, but freedom won. The 21st century, we face the same question. And that question will be answered. Either the future is going to be one of tyranny, set by the CCP through their various minions and entities, or it's going to be one of liberty and freedom once again in the 21st century. Of course, there are reasons for great concern, but I am absolutely convinced with this audience, of course, and the energy and support that you bring, that that question will be answered firmly and absolutely, that freedom and liberty will again define the 21st century. Thank you very much indeed.